tuned to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro's Sushi, Dr. Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic bootcamp, California Jam, MoveWell University, the Black Diamond Club, Pure Chiro Notes, the Chiro Dex app, Dr. Alok Trivedi, Chiro Spark, Chirogram, Chiropractic Wealth Management, and 8 Weeks to Wellness. Let's hustle.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode of Chiro Hustle. I'm your co-host Luke Millette, and here's your host Jim Chester.
Hey guys, so today we had the opportunity of bringing our guest Dane Donohue to you, and he has done something for the wellness world, and he created a program called 8 Weeks to Wellness, and their idea is if you give us 8 weeks, we can change your life. So listen to this episode and enjoy.
So why don't we start by you telling us your chiropractic story and what first influenced you to become a chiropractor?
Well, my story is probably like some of the other I know everybody kind of comes to their chiropractic story a little bit different. A lot of chiropractors have had incredible experience with chiropractic care. Mine was simply that I was born into chiropractic. I'm a third generation chiropractor, and my father, my grandfather, my two uncles were chiropractors, and so I grew up around chiropractic and chiropractors my whole life. Grew up going to DE. Grew up going to Parker, grew up going to my uncle's healthcare class, grew up in an office where my dad had a home office combination, so we literally had two paralleling driveways. One went into my dad's chiropractic practice, and one went into our home. So it was, I would say there was an incident that I vividly remember where I was about 13 years old, and there was a guy coming out of my dad's office, and he called me over and he asked me if I was Dr. Donohue's son, and I said yes, and he handed me a $100 bill, and he told me to give it to my dad. And I just remember, at the time, my dad's adjustments were $13, and I remember going in, and we always had dinner at 5:30, and so my dad came up at 5:30 from patient hours, and we sat down, and I had this $100 bill, and I said, Dad, this guy gave me this $100 bill to give to you. And of course, I thought my dad was going to give me like a finder's fee, like maybe $10, hit the 7-Eleven up for some candy. But that never happened. And I'm sure, knowing my dad, he gave it back to the guy. But I just really remember that as a time where, this guy really valued what my dad did. And he didn't think my dad was charging enough for the value that he was getting in return. And so that was a pivotal moment for me. And then, just seeing a lot of the miracle cases that came into my dad or my uncle or I remember going to my grandfather's office, to get adjusted as a kid. And so it was kind of a natural thing. The other thing that for me is I love the fact that my dad was his own boss. He kind of made his own hours, and, he went skiing. We were very active in our lifestyle. So we went skiing out on the boat on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And, that kind of appealed to me too, being able to be my own boss and create my own hours and, kind of direct my own life instead of have my life directed by somebody else.
So what would you say makes you unique in the chiropractic world? What are you doing differently than everybody else?
I think the big thing that I'm known for in chiropractic is obviously 8 Weeks to Wellness. And I think that what makes us unique is that we've developed a chiropractic lifestyle modification. And, I always ask chiropractors that you have to see chiropractic either as a technique or a treatment, or you have to see it as a lifestyle. And growing up the way that I grew up, chiropractic to me was not about the adjustment and the technique. Chiropractic to me was about the philosophy, and it was really about the lifestyle. I grew up understanding that physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress creates subluxation. So to me, the underlying cause of living a chiropractic lifestyle was as important, if not even more important, than just getting adjusted. An adjustment is a technique, and we all have different techniques, whether it's Gonstead or whether it's network or non-force techniques or diversified, Thompson, and I could go on and on and on. Chiropractic is a technique to correct subluxation, but I think the thing that makes us really unique is that we want to teach people how do they adopt the chiropractic lifestyle, and how do they do it in a very systematic way where there's structure and they understand what the goals are, which is to really improve their physiology and function in their body. And I just also feel very strongly that we've come to a point in time where if you're not doing that for your patients, you're going to have a really hard time just getting results through the adjustment if you're not changing your patient's lifestyle, if you're not teaching them how to eat properly, and if you're not teaching them exercises, incredibly important when people are sitting, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and that emotional stress is devastating their nervous system and their physiology. So I think when you blend and marry the chiropractic adjustment with the chiropractic lifestyle, what you get is truly remarkable changes in your patients that are very demonstrable. We do blood work on our patients. We measure people's functional movement screen. We look at their x-rays. We do their functional movement screen, and we see just amazing changes, not only when we adjust people, but when we adjust their lifestyle.
To me, that sounds pretty awesome. And I've known that you've been doing this 8 Weeks to Wellness program for some years now. And early on in my chiropractic career, I heard about you firsthand from one of your clients. Now, let's tell me a little bit about how the 8 Weeks to Wellness program came to be and how many people now you have under your 8 Weeks to Wellness flag.
Yeah, well, it was very simple. I had been in practice, Jim, about, I want to say I graduated in 1991, so I just am finishing up my 26th year of practice. So I had been in practice probably about 10, 11 years, and I had a good practice. We had a really good chiropractic family practice. I had actually taken over my uncle's practice. My uncle moved out to Colorado, and so I took over the family practice. That was my grandfather's practice. And, I had two practices. I had one in my hometown and one that was my family's practice. My sister had just graduated chiropractic college. She was working with me. And we just kind of looked at ourselves and said, we have to do more for our patients. We have to teach them how to make changes in their lifestyle because, the same person's coming in with the same problems, the same subluxation patterns, the same broken down joints, the same high blood pressure, and we're adjusting them, but they're returning, 2-3 weeks later with the same problem because they haven't changed anything in their lifestyle. So we sat down and we took about a year and a half, Jim, to really think about, okay, if we were going to create a structured program. And, I had been to James Chestnut Wellness Certification Program. I was actually one of the first people to go through his certification. I loved it. I loved the information, but I wanted to make a program that made it tangible where people really had structure and they had accountability and they had a manual and they had, they were working out with a trainer that was going to show them the skills that were necessary to train properly. So, we developed the program. We launched it in 2003. And, the rest is history. We have now over 80 offices that run the program, and we've kind of systemized it as a kind of a distributorship, a franchise, and it's been awesome.
So is there any type of mantra or quote that helps you stick with your commitments as you go through the momentum of being a chiropractor?
Yeah, there's a couple, actually. I think if anybody knows me, my main mantra is who you are speaks so loudly I can't hear what you say. I think there's, especially when it comes to social media, Jim, and I'm sure you see this, people can say anything they want. That you can say anything you want about your practice, about your statistics, about your own health, about your philosophy. But I would say if you want to know about a person, just look at their calendar and look at where they spend their money, look at their checkbook. Because where you spend your time and where you spend your money tells me everything I need to know about a person. And so I want to live my life so that I'm a shining example in what I do, not just what I say I'm going to do. So that's a big one for me. And then the other one is that which gets scheduled gets done. I believe if it's in my calendar, Jim, Stephen Covey has a quote that things that matter most should never be at the mercy of things that matter least. And so if the things that matter most in my life, which are my family and my commitment to chiropractic and my friends and God, those things need to be scheduled into my calendar, and it just makes life a lot more simpler for me because I think that we have a tendency to focus on the smaller things, and they kind of make their way into our calendar, and then before you know it, you don't have room for the really important things.
Well, I surely appreciate you sharing that, and I surely appreciate you telling everybody a little bit about, what you do to keep yourself accountable. And I think it's really awesome to hear what you had to say about, if you pay attention to what people spend their money on, you know who they are. I think
Right.
that's an incredible integrity point because people only spend money on themselves however they see fit once they earn it. I mean, we're going to spend it on our basics, like, going out there and paying for our mortgage, our rent, our car payment, our insurance, whatever it might be. But if you really want to know the baseline of a human, you find out where they're spending their money on their $20 items and their $50 items.
Sure. Yeah, and same with your patients. I tell my patients, they say, listen, you have to invest in your health because your health cuts across every dimension of your life. I ask my patients, Jim, I say, tell me one dimension that your health doesn't cut across. Your family relationships, your productivity at work, your spirituality, because you take you to all of those relationships. And so wouldn't you want to take the healthiest, most energetic, most productive, most vibrant you possible to those relationships? And if that's the case, how do you take care of that asset called your health? And, you have to put time and energy back into it because things that matter most should never be at the mercy of things that matter least. And your health should be one of those things that matter most because it is going to determine, the impact that you have on all of those other things that you think are so important in your life.
So what do you think people would be able to accomplish if everyone knew about your 8 weeks to wellness program?
I think that, from a patient's perspective, if people knew about 8 weeks to wellness, they would learn, they would learn the habits. Aristotle said that we are what we repeatedly do. And I think what people need is they need they need a way, they need a clear map, if you will, of how do I live a congruent, healthy lifestyle? Because the problem is people are being bombarded with drug ads, and they're being bombarded with things that make them more sedentary, like a computer or a cell phone. They're being bombarded with more and more responsibility, which creates more emotional stress in their life. So we don't have to go out there and go hunting for ways to make us unhealthy. They're going to find us. So to avoid that trap, we have to set a real conscious, we have to have a real conscious effort with the way we live our life. And so to me, 8 weeks to wellness is just teaching people how to live their life in a way where it respects their time. The whole program, I always say, to stay healthy takes roughly about an hour to an hour and a half a day. And in a day that consists of 24 hours and you sleep for 8 of them, hopefully, or 7, you have 16 to 17 waking hours. And I'm going to ask you that you put an hour and a half back into your own health and your own body. So that's working out, that's planning your meals, that's getting your adjustments, that's doing your meditation every morning. That takes about an hour and a half. And then that other time that you have, that other 15 to 16 hours are going to be so productive because you're going to be so energetic. So I think if more people knew about 8 weeks to wellness, they'd have, this true north of, what's important, and that is their health. And then if more doctors knew about it, they'd recognize that almost every doctor I know, guys, wants a wellness-based practice. They want a chiropractic wellness-based practice. But that goes above and beyond putting wellness in your business card or on your sign or on your social media post. Wellness to me is a verb. Like, what are you doing to support your patients in making better decisions with their diet, with their exercise, with how they manage stress, with making sure they get adjusted? These are the things I think more chiropractors knew, that this is not what I think confuses a lot of chiropractors. They try to be all things to all people. It's like, okay, I have 50 different patients. We're going to create 50 different wellness programs. But I think if chiropractors have one fundamental wellness program, where in our office, 8 weeks to wellness, we can customize it a little bit, but everybody's getting adjusted, everybody's exercising, everybody's eating what I call Paleo-Mediterranean diet, where we're getting the sugar and the crap out of their diet. Everybody's meditating 10 minutes a day. And then that's the platform, and then we can customize it based on the patient's individual needs. But we have a real baseline of what we want to do with somebody who really needs to get healthy. And so that's how I think it could benefit the chiropractor.
So I have a follow-up question that's a little bit more direct and off script, but what do you see as the one aspect that most of the people that go through the program have the most trouble with?
That's a really great question, Jim. I think the biggest thing that people struggle with is the planning, because people aren't used to planning health and wellness into their life. And I always tell my clients to begin with, I say, based on me doing this program 13, 14 years, I know where you're going to screw up because I know where the speed bumps are. And one of the biggest ones is you're not going to plan. And so, we give people a manual, and in the back of that manual is literally a log with everything they're doing in the given day that they can fill out. And Jim, it takes no more than 10 minutes to plan out their day. And that's the meals they're doing, when they're going to exercise, when they're getting their adjustment, when they're doing their meditation. Did they give thanks and gratitude that day? If they did, what for? I mean, it literally takes 5 minutes to fill all this out. And if people start to do that, they start to think about, okay, this is where I'm going to be. I need to eat. So do I have something healthy with me? Something on the approved list. When am I? Today's the day I'm getting adjusted. Today's the day I'm exercising. So I think the biggest thing is making sure that people are mentally scheduled properly, because they're not used to having these things scheduled into their life. So they have to kind of get their mind wrapped around, okay, every day I'm going to give a little bit of thought of where I need to be, what I need to do to really follow through on a healthy lifestyle.
Well, it sounds like you have a really tight system for people to follow, and I can appreciate that because I've seen a lot of chiropractors really go down the other side of the mountain, and they don't have a system in place, and then they clasp on anything they can as a guru or a leader or a marketing system or a strategy or whatever it might be. But it sounds like you have a really good system in place for people to come in and kind of build their home out of it. But when it comes to, the average person getting into the program, what are some wins that you've seen for the people that are like the 8 weeks to wellness success stories?
It's been amazing, and just to give a snapshot of my day. Yesterday, I literally was in my office from 7:30 in the morning till about 9 at night. I had a corporate lunch and learn talk at lunch, so I didn't even really get a chance to. I had lunch, but it was kind of on the fly. And we saw 122 people. I had 5 new patients. And we had 2 8 weeks to wellness new patients. And, I never get tired of going to my office and doing that. Some of the days are long, but I think it's the success stories that really, I call it the doorknob test, Jim. Like, I love turning my doorknob because of 8 weeks to wellness, I know the changes that we're going to see in people's lives, and they really are profound. So, I think everything from obviously people that, their energy just goes through the roof. Energy is defined as the ability to do work. It's how productive you are in your life. So if people aren't healthy, if they don't have a good functioning nervous system, if they're eating crap, they're not going to be energetic. And if they're not energetic, they're not going to be very productive in their family life, in their work life. So people's energy goes through the roof. They sleep better. They're starting, people get off medications, and again, if you're a chiropractor like me, that, whether it's a child, an adolescent, an adult, people are taking prescription medication by the handfuls. And why are they taking it? Because they think that that's the solution to their healthcare challenges, and that's what they've been told. So, from getting people off of diabetic medications, antidepressants, statins, blood pressure medication. Why? Because their physiology is working the way that it should, the way that God designed it. So I think, the biggest changes that we see is just people getting their energy back and getting their life back. And really, getting off medications and starting to understand that I really do have control over my health. This isn't a genetic predisposition that I'm doomed to having high cholesterol and heart disease and cancer and diabetes and being depressed and all these other things. So it's just, it's really neat to see people kind of wake up to their own potential of what they can do in their life. And until you go through it with patients, it's really hard to get that sense of joy as a doctor. But when you start to see these home runs, and it's not just people getting out of pain, it's people completely changing their life. I mean, this sounds little, but I had a patient this week, Jimmy's 407 pounds. His first week of 8 weeks to wellness, he lost 15 pounds. He's in his second week. He came in this week. He looks like a different person. I don't know how much he's lost up to this point, but I can just see the bounce in his step, and I can see he's gone from being kind of depressed to really excited. And for me as a doctor, that really, really does it for me. That really gets me excited.
So where do you see the chiropractic profession in 20 years?
That's a really great question. My son is at Penn State right now studying kinesiology because he wants to be a chiropractor, and he'll be a 4th generation chiropractor in our family. And I'm really proud that he's chosen the chiropractic profession. But I think the chiropractic profession is going to be exactly where we decide it's going to be. I think free market economies decide the value of a product, service, or an idea. I think as much as we want to go out and, we want to tell the story, if that story is not compelling to the people you're reading the story to, they're not going to listen, and they're not going to tell other people that it's a story worth reading. So I think, if we can really step up, I think one of the things that I saw growing up in chiropractic, guys, was I saw these miracle cases. I saw, just amazing things happen with chiropractic care in people's lives. And we've got to get back to having those miracle stories of, the people that were given up on, and again, now we're dealing with really serious diseases, and obviously we don't treat disease, but we do treat the human being that has that disease. And so I think when you can step up and not just help somebody who has tweaked their lower back, But when you can step up with a child who has epilepsy, or you can step up with a kid that I has right now who's been vaccine damaged and he's 28 years old and he has the mental capacity of a second grader, and still care for somebody like that and see great changes. Or you can see these changes like we see with 8 Weeks to Wellness, where somebody has lost 100 pounds and they're off all their medications. I think those people are the ones that are going to build our profession, go out and tell other people about chiropractic, that it's not just about back pain, that it's really about health and wellness, and and really changing your life through chiropractic care.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Chiro's Sushi, Dr. Barbara Eaton's 56-day chiropractic boot camp, California Jam, Movewell University, the Black Diamond Club, Pure Chiro Notes, the Chiro Dex app, Dr. Alok Trivedi, Chiro Spark, Chirogram, Chiropractic Wealth Management, and 8 Weeks to Wellness. Let's hustle. So I want to circle back a little bit on that question. And why do you think that the chiropractic profession became so well known for neck and back pain?
I think two reasons. I think one is because that's where we work, and I think people are, people just make very simple assumptions. Oh, he's working on my back, then chiropractic is for back pain. But then I really believe, Jim, that the insurance industry pigeonholed us into a musculoskeletal model of pain. I saw growing up, my dad was cash. He migrated to insurance. I saw when I graduated chiropractic college in 1991, we were well entrenched in being able to put a couple codes and, ICD-10 or 9 codes at the time and CPT codes and send it out and get a large sum of money. And, chiropractors fell into that trap, and when they did, I think we lost something in chiropractic. This is just my personal opinion.
Sure.
And we started to focus on the money instead of focusing on the value. Because before insurance was in chiropractic, listen, man, if somebody was going to pay you cash or they were going to write you a check, there had to be fair exchange. They were giving you the hard-earned dollars, but they better get some sort of, return value, whether that was, hey, you helped them with a condition or you improved the quality of their life in some way. So I personally think insurance really screwed us up, and we really haven't recovered ever since.
So what do you think the main thing that you could give to anybody that's interested in becoming less insurance dependent? What are some tips that you might be able to give them to where they can start living a better quality of life in the chiropractic practice?
So I think, I think that chiropractors need to forget about what the patient's financial ability to pay is. They need to start looking people at human beings, whether they have, Blue Cross Blue Shield, no insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. You can't make assumptions about a person's financial responsibility or ability to pay. So I think one of the best things that chiropractors can do is stop examining people based on what their what their insurance is or whether they think that they're going to have the financial ability to pay, and just start treating people like human beings and start creating more value. Like, again, one of the things that we do on all of our patients is we do a wellness score and we give people a grade. And I look people dead in the eye. I say, listen, Jim, this lower back pain may make you uncomfortable, but this wellness score is going to kill you. Okay? So I want you to think about your life a year from now or 5 years from now. Where do you want your health to be? Okay? And that we can go from that conversation and have a conversation about their health instead of their back pain. So I think chiropractors need to start to learn, techniques to start to really engage with patients to get them to see what the bigger picture of chiropractic care is. It's not about the patient's symptoms. Now, I will say that, I think sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I hear a lot of chiropractors say, well, we shouldn't talk about symptoms. And I think we have to meet people where they are, Jim. I think people come in because they've been to doctors. And when do we go to a doctor? We go to a doctor when we don't feel well or when we're sick. And that's just what people's belief and paradigm are about going to the doctor. So they carry that same paradigm to our office. And so I do believe that we have to kind of meet them where they are, and then take them to where we want them to be. That health isn't about symptoms, it's about function. That every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And what brought you into the office today was this problem that you have. But I'm the type of doctor that wants to find the problem and fix it for good so it never comes back. And then beyond that, let's find other problems that haven't cropped up yet as a crisis in your life. I had a great comment the other day, Jim, and you'll love this, but it was that neglect shows up as a crisis in your life. And I just love that. Neglect eventually shows up as a crisis in your life. And isn't that so true when it comes to people's health? You know, they neglect, and all of a sudden they have this crisis, and you can call that crisis a heart attack, you can call it cancer, you can call it, a slip disc, whatever you want to call it. But generally that problem has come from years of neglect.
So what are your primary marketing strategies? What have you found gets you the best results?
We have 3 specifically. Referrals, obviously. And I'll talk about that in just a second because I want to give everybody a strategy of just one simple thing that you can do to start generating more referrals. And then our second one is outside talks. So we do a lot of outside corporate lunch and learn talks. We belong to a program called Team Doc where we sponsor local athletic teams in exchange for coming and speaking to the athletes and the parents in their preseason meeting, which has been a home run. And then we also do a lot of social media. I feel like in the past 2 years, we've gotten really good at our social media platform that we use in our practice to, again, get our message and our testimonials out to people that are on the web. And, somebody told me this and it just made so much sense to me. But, 50 years ago, people read the New York Times for their current events. And, today people go onto Facebook and they go onto Instagram to find out current events, except, 50 years ago, if people wanted to share an article, they could clip it out and share it with one person. And with the touch of a button, people can share that current event article or that testimony or that news story with literally thousands of people at a time and do it when you're sleeping. So social media to me is something that's not going away, and it's something that chiropractors need to get good at.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And as you've seen, that all we do is hammer social media. I mean, if we're not doing something on Instagram, we're doing something on Facebook. If we're not doing something on Facebook, we're figuring out how many different levels of platforms we can get this one message out to. And, this interview is going to be disseminated on 16 different platforms, whether audio, video, or visual. So the more that people learn how to leverage the media platforms, the more success they'll have as a business, period. Whether it's a chiropractic business or any type of business, maybe it's a podcast business. And that's what we're running. So we had to figure out the best ways to add value for the chiropractic message. And how are we going to get that out to people? Well, we did a ton of research to find out how everybody is getting their information, what platforms they're getting it on, and how we can get to them the quickest and easiest and most effective. So it just makes sense what you're saying. I love the idea of doing the programs and building that partnership with the schools and doing the talks to the parents and the students. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I know that.
Before I forget, Jim, can I give everybody like literally $1,000 tip right now?
Sure.
So I think it's actually probably like a $10,000 tip, and I want everybody to do this. The next time you're in your practice, I want you to ask every single patient this question, and then I want you to follow it up. But the question is this. So let's say you came in, Jim, for an adjustment. You're on the table, and I'm adjusting you, and I just say this. I say, hey, Jim, how's everybody in your family doing? Everybody healthy? And, what you're going to find is there's always going to be somebody who's sick or somebody who's having a problem. So the question is, and you're going to ask it to every single patient, just do it. Don't question it, guys. Just do it. Hey, Jim, how you doing? How's everybody in your family doing? Everybody healthy? And what Jim's going to go, no, you know what? My wife, her right knee's hurting, and, she's had a problem. Or they're going to say, no, you know what? My son's going through a really rough time. He's had some allergies and asthma. And then again, you're just going to follow it up with another question. Say, hey, Jim, have you ever considered chiropractic care? Because I've had a lot of success with knee problems where chiropractic really helps with asthma and allergies because of its impact on the nervous system. So why don't we get your son scheduled for an exam and a consult, and let's see if I can help him with this condition. And, not every seed that you throw out there is going to be fertilized, but I guarantee you, you'll generate a ton of referrals. You can generate 2, 3, 4 referrals like that a day.
Yeah, that is a big time tip. And when I'm out doing the chiropractic marketing events that I do, I ask people a couple questions. I ask them, how long has it been going on? Have you ever injured yourself? Are you doing anything to help it? And then I ask them that question too. Have you ever considered chiropractic?
Right.
And then you see deer in headlights, like, oh my gosh, I haven't. And then you're like, well, great, I have a great opportunity for you. And then you can start that conversation of scheduling someone in, whether it's on the table or underneath the awning at a farmer's market.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what's your favorite app or technology to keep you engaged with your audience?
I would say for us, we have a really good, we do really good with Facebook ads. We have a pretty good system for content marketing in our practice. So we create a year-long content marketing strategy. And every month we have a theme that we revolve around content. So we're doing that right now. And so every month we pick a different topic or a condition or a theme. And we just do a ton of videos around it. And then we do testimonials around that with our patients. So let's say that, I'm just going to use this for an example, but let's say that it's Heart Health Month. Well, we'll show people who've been through 8 weeks to wellness and reduced their cholesterol 80 pounds. We'll do interviews with those people. We'll talk about how to lower cholesterol naturally without statins and why that's important. So we'll do what we call why, how, and what videos on that content. We just do a ton of content, and then some of those, like if we did a testimonial with a patient, we may turn that into a Facebook ad that we get out into the community as well. So I think Facebook ads have probably been the best social media bang for our buck in terms of return on investment.
Well, it sounds like you guys have a pretty smooth system around the whole corporate identity of 8 weeks to wellness. And I think that you've probably been through all the ins and outs of figuring out what works best for you. And it's awesome to hear all this valuable information that you're sharing with our audience. I know that there's so many people out there that are going to benefit from your wisdom and that, your lineage of being a chiropractor and what it means to be a chiropractor. And I think that what you've done is created a system that people can plug into they can take your system and plug it right into their practice, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we always say, there's a saying I love, Jim. It's you can't fire a cannon from a rowboat. You know what I mean? And you have to fire a cannon from a battleship because the battleship's a lot more stable than the rowboat. So, 8 weeks to wellness was really designed to be added to a successful, stable practice. So 8 weeks to wellness is not going to save any practice. But let me tell you something. It's a cannon on a battleship. It's really something that can accelerate the growth of a practice because let's face it, Jim, I always just say this question. If you were to go out and ask 100 people, and I really want you to answer this question, Jim, because I think you have your finger on the pulse of the chiropractic profession and what's going on, and you're not a chiropractor, so you also have your finger on the pulse of public perception of chiropractic. But if you were to go and ask 100 people, hey, do you need a chiropractor? And then you ask the 100 people to say, hey, do you need to be well and healthy? I'd venture to say that, I don't know how many people would say I need a chiropractor, but I know 100% of the people that you ask, hey, do you need to be healthy and well, would say yes. And so if we can bring people into the conversation through health and wellness and then teach them how chiropractic fits into that model, I call it turning the funnel upside down. Instead of trying to get people in through the small end of the funnel and then turn them on, to wellness, why don't we bring them in based on something they already understand, which is wellness, health, nutrition, exercise, and then teach them how chiropractic fits into that paradigm?
Well, I'm going to answer you because you asked me to.
Right.
So I think that just on the public perception, about 20% of the population is really interested in chiropractic, and that's probably shooting high. I do think that people are turning the corner to realize that chiropractic is a health source and it's a health giving health system, and it's not about aches and pains as much as it is about giving them better quality of life. And I think that we are actually doing a lot in the public's perception with what all the chiropractors are doing now. There's a lot more media agents of chiropractic that are actually getting to the front lines and doing podcasts and doing Facebook Lives and doing dinner with the doc talks and doing, external marketing events and, actually getting out into communities and being loud and proud and certain about what they do. So I think the public perception of chiropractic is starting to get a little bit better. But taking the other side of that question is, I really think that the people out there are definitely realizing that, there's no pill, potion, or lotion that is gonna cure their obesity. It's got to come from somebody that's putting them on some type of a program. And I know right now weight loss is the big go-to for that. And I know if you did a poll, I'm sure around 80% of the people out there would be like, yeah, I could do to lose 5 to 10 pounds or maybe 15. So when you take the health and wellness aspect and you teach the 4-dimensional lifestyle, like Chestnut probably taught you, was to eat well, think well, move well. And the part that I add the component in there is to get adjusted. And I say the cool thing is that a chiropractor is going to start you out with the adjustment first, and then they're going to teach you these other principles of the eat well, think well, move well. And then I go on to say I've never recommended the chiropractic lifestyle to anybody that's life got worse.
Right.
So when we think about those types of conversations and that type of information, I think that we're bridging the gap more with a system like yours, because now you're going to cross-refer. You're going to get people in that are interested in health and wellness, and then they're going to realize that they have musculoskeletal concerns as well, because you're going to do a proper assessment with x-rays and physical. And I think that people that come into a strict chiropractic paradigm, they aren't going to realize how healthy they can actually be, because like you said, the reason you started 8 weeks to wellness is because you realized that you saw a chronic subluxation cycle. You started taking care of people, you realized that they weren't getting better, you did realize that they were getting better, but they had the chronic subluxation until you started getting their body well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully I answered your question a little bit, but I do think that there's definitely a need for the health and wellness market to have chiropractic as a bigger player in it.
Absolutely. And, I think the biggest issue we face, Jim, is I think, we're with these, especially with what you're doing, we're bringing in, and Josh Axe now, and we're bringing so much more awareness to the public about who we are as chiropractors and what we do. And now the really important thing is we have to step up and deliver on the promise. If we say that chiropractic is the greatest thing since sliced bread, then when people show up to our offices, we better deliver on the promise.
God deliver the goods. Find it, fix it, and let it heal. Gonstead.
Yep.
Well, before we move on to our last question, I just have to say I think I would pay really good money to see a cannon fired from a rowboat.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So, in your spare time, what do you like to read? What do you like to listen to?
You know what? I read a lot. I'm reading a book right now called Tool of Titans. I read a book that really, really changed my business this year called Traction by Gino Wickman. I'm a real big fan of reading. I get up every morning at 5. I meditate, I read scripture, and then I generally read for about a half hour. I personally don't read a lot of fiction. I like to read biographies, and I like to read things that are going to make my personal life better and my practice better, or the health of my patients better. I'm constantly reading, constantly asking for good recommendations of good books. I'm looking right now in my office at books, just everywhere. So, I think that leaders are readers, and that if you're really going to lead your practice and lead your personal life, the way that I look at it is there's experts in all fields. And so if I'm struggling in any dimension of my personal life, whether that's my marriage, my own personal health, my finances, my practice health, whether that's getting new patients or retaining new patients, or how to do corporate wellness, how to run my business like a business, there's somebody out there that's an expert. And all I got to do is go tap into their information and apply what I learned. And I know my personal life and my business life is going to get better. So not only do I read, but I have a personal notebook that I keep, that I create action items based on the information that I read. So for example, if I go to a seminar and I get great information, that information in and of itself isn't going to change my life. But taking that information and creating action items from that information and implementing that into my life is going to change my life. So I have a notebook that I call my action item notebook. And every single week, based on the information that I learned the previous week, I sit down on Monday, I create a whole list of action items that I want to implement for that week, based on what I read and I learned from the following week.
Well, we're just about at the end of our show for the day. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to ask you?
No, I just, I think the biggest thing for me is I just want the chiropractors that are listening to truly be proud and to understand that, this is going to be a battle. I've been fighting this battle for 26 years, and I think if people can just understand that this is going to be every single day, you're going to get up and you're going to fight the good fight. And it's going to be a fight, and there's going to be times that, that you win, you lose the battle. But, overall, you'll win the war, because what we're doing in chiropractic saves lives. Your ultimate focus should be that of your patients. People out there are suffering. Children are suffering. Adults are suffering because they don't know and they don't live the chiropractic lifestyle. And if it doesn't inspire you to go to your office and change a human being's life for the better, then you're in the wrong profession. But if you can keep your eye on that we go and we serve through the chiropractic tool, through our chiropractic knowledge, and the ultimate goal is to make people's lives better, because when they're better, they ripple out into every aspect of their life and they become better human beings. And if you can just keep your focus on that, that way when all the bull crap happens, and it's going to happen, I promise you, you can shake it off and say, okay, you know what? Tomorrow's another day, and I get to focus on my purpose.
Well, you touched on something there that I wanted to go back to earlier question that we had for you that I didn't get a chance to have the follow-up on it is, how many 8 weeks to wellness offices do you have, and what's the end goal for that?
So we have 80. Currently, we have one in Canada. We have about 70 in the U.S., and we have about 9 in the U.K.
Cool.
And, so it's been a real organic growth. Our goal is to have 500 centers in the next 5 years. That's our goal. And as long as I can maintain balance in my life, one of the things I'm most proud of, Jim, is my marriage and my children. I have a lot of balance in my life, and I'm not willing to give that up for anything. And so 8 weeks to wellness will grow exactly the way God wants it to grow. And if it grows to 500, great. And if it grows to 1,000, even better. But I think I'm just keeping my focus on really maintaining balance in my own personal life and with my practice and with 8 weeks to wellness.
So if people wanted to jump on board with you and become an 8 weeks to wellness office, or to learn more about your programs, what are some resources where they can find you?
Well, if they want to learn about the patient program, just go to 8ww.com. So the number 8ww.com, and that's a website that all of the offices use on their websites to teach people about what 8 weeks to wellness is. If they want to learn from a doctor's perspective, we have another website. It's learn8ww.com, and that's more of a doctor-directed website to learn about the 8 weeks to wellness program and how it could benefit your practice implementing 8 weeks to wellness or a structured wellness program into your practice.
Well, awesome.
That just about wraps up our episode for the day. I want to thank you again for being our guest on the show today, sir.
My pleasure. It was really good to be with you guys.
Yeah, Dane, I really appreciate your friendship, and I look forward to a really positive future with you, and I'm happy to be a part of your chiropractic family.
Yeah, and Jim, I just want to shout out to you, buddy. I've known you for a long time, and you're probably one of the staunchest advocates I know for the chiropractic profession. You're not even a chiropractor, but the megaphone that you've created for our message is huge, and I just really want to thank you for the work that you're doing as well, because I know it's tireless work, and it's always not always acknowledged, but it is appreciated.
Well, I thank you for that too, man. It hits me in my heart, and I really appreciate it. And I do appreciate your devotion to the Lord, and I know it's going to serve us both well to keep supporting chiropractic together.
Awesome, man.
All right, Dane, I want you to enjoy the rest of your day for me, okay?
All right, man. I'm going to bust out a workout.
Me too.
All right, guys. You take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.